Okay. Here we are.
Here we are.
Well, we've been thinking about doing this for a long time. And this is our podcast called Create Today. So what we're doing, and why is it Create Today? So we can help people create the lives that they want, no matter what the struggles they go through and the obstacles and the problems. And because we've all had some. And so I thought, well, the very first guest we need is John Stanley, because if you look at him, he kind of looks like Clark Kent. And
Someone actually called me Mr. Rogers yesterday.
Yeah.
They said you look like Mr. Rogers because I was wearing a brown suit.
He looks like Clark Kent, and he's got a Rolex and nice suits and the Mercedes and blah, blah, blah. And they think he's like this clean cut kind of guy. And then they hear the F word coming out of his mouth. They're like, whoa, who are you? I was like, well, let's tell people who you are, because your story is completely insane. So if we told the whole story, it would probably take 89 hours of footage and 14 weeks to shoot. But I want to go through the highlights, because anyone who's had the life that John Stanley has is either dead or in jail. I'm sure of it. It's the craziest story you've ever heard. So let's start at the beginning.
Oh boy.
So here you are. How did you end up born in Anchorage, Alaska? You didn't ever live there.
So I was adopted in Anchorage, and I had a mother, I guess. This is what I found out after the fact. I was told that my mother was from a fairly well-to-do family. She was 19, and my dad was a Scandinavian playboy, is what I was told. Kind of ironic.
So interesting.
100% Scandinavian in Sweden. And so I guess he lived in Oregon and went down to Spokane for business. And my mom at the time worked in a little coffee shop or like
soda shop. We found all of this later. The adoption story, like how we found his adopted parents. I mean, his birth parents is awesome. So we won't tell the whole story. We've got to do that in another interview. Time. It's so good how that whole thing happened. So we found out later that she worked in Spokane. She's 19 years old. Her dad had just died, and meets Mr. Scandinavian Playboy. As it turns out, I don't think that he knew he had a son, because we found your sister from your dad, and she said, there's no way he would have known about you, because he would have wanted you in his life. And I thought, well, that was sweet and sad. It makes me want to cry just saying that, he never knew. So she never told him. She never told anybody. The only people that knew were her two sisters, who were also deceased by the time we found all of this out. So there's literally 0 people on the earth that knew she had a son until we found out. Including
her own children after me.
Yeah. So we found out that her sister's husband was stationed in Anchorage, Alaska. So they ship them off like they do in the 50s, right? Mm-hmm. Ship the pregnant girl off, have the baby there, and tell nobody for the rest of your life. Insane.
That's pretty much it.
So you get adopted.
So I got adopted by Herb and Genevieve. His name obviously was Stanley. And they adopted me when I was approximately 3 or 4 days old. And I should have known what was coming. Of course, I didn't understand language when I was 4 days old, but I guess Herb looked at Genevieve and said, do you want it? Like me, I'm an it. And then after that, we moved to Park Fairfax, Washington, D.C. We're there for a minute, then we went to Cairo, Egypt.
That's when you went to Cairo.
Yeah, that's when I went to Cairo.
So he worked for the FAA. That's why he was stationed all over the world in crazy places.
Administration worked directly with the American Embassy. That's why we were in Cairo.
So Cairo was interesting, as that was your very first experience with being abused?
From what I can
you remember?
Yeah, because they didn't have any English schools back in the day. So I went to a French parochial school, and I was probably one of 2 or 3 white blonde kids in the whole school. Everyone else was from somewhere else, and they didn't like Americans very much. Mm-hmm. And so even at a young age, I started getting in scrapes, whatever you call it, fights all the time. And I remember vividly when JFK was shot, the whole school was rejoicing. Like they were happy about it.
It's just incredible to me. Yeah. I could not believe it when you told me that the first time. So you were very, very young and you were molested by your babysitters, right?
Babysitters in Cairo, yeah.
In Cairo. And then tell them about the trip when you went and you got really super sick and you walked on the cliff. Where was that?
Geez, so many. God has been on my side for so long, but we went to Greece, Mykonos, Greece. I was probably 5-ish, and I think I either had chicken pox or what's the other one? Measles?
Yeah.
One or the other. But I remember vividly I was hallucinating. I don't know where Jen and Herb was. Maybe they're in the house, but I left, and I just started wandering because I was super sick. But I can remember walking, I guess, on this cliff, and I fell. And it was probably 40, 50 feet because I remember looking up and seeing people up there. But I landed right on the sand, not the rocks, not a boulder, just the sand, and I was fine.
It's crazy.
It was like the first time that I defied something worse.
Yeah. You just fell off a cliff and lived and you were fine. You didn't even break anything.
No, nothing.
So this is the first of your 97 lives, right?
Yeah, pretty
I always
much.
say he's like 100 lives.
We're over 100 now.
He should have died literally. Okay, maybe not 100, but there's number one.
Yeah.
Then you go to, is that when they get a divorce and you go to New York?
No, not yet. I don't
Shortly
remember
after that.
Yeah, shortly after that. I just can remember my Genevieve was a super bad drunk, and I remember countless times that Herb would call the doctor in. I can remember him walking down the hallway with his bag, his black bags that doctors used to carry back in the day.
They would do house calls.
Yeah, they did house calls, and Herb would be sitting on top of Genevieve, and the doctor would give her a shot to put her out. And not long after that, we got on a ship, sailed to New York, got off the ship, went to the train station, and I remember this little kid came up to us, and he said, he had a bellman's cap on and everything, and he said, "I'll take your bags, ma'am." And he did. He took everything.
He took every single thing they had.
Took our bags. He's gone.
That's all they had.
And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, now what? Which, come to find out, is words that I use frequently. Now what? But I remember standing there, and it's like, where'd he go? No bags. The only thing we owned, or everything we owned, was on our body. And
nuts.
I blacked out after that because I don't even remember where we lived there, what street. I don't remember anything in New York after that day.
Yeah, and it couldn't have been more than a year, or it's a little bit less.
A year, something like that.
He doesn't even remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So you have no idea how long you live in New York, but you know you landed in New York, and then you ended up in the beautiful Boston projects. Well, gorgeous.
Yeah, Cambridge, and kind of like not a bad project, but
they were probably new.
Maybe newer, yeah. But there was, it was like you see a big building, 6-7 stories high, with wire mesh through the door, the entryway, and all kinds of buzzers that people used to ring to get in. And it wasn't really the safest part of town, I guess.
No, and she was a
huge
huge alcoholic.
Yeah, so she'd disappear for 2-3 months, or not months, weeks at a time. And my safe place was in front of the TV. This is a while later. The first place, it was really small. We didn't even have a TV. Then we got a TV, and I remember Bozo the Clown's first color TV I ever saw, and I was probably 7 at the time, and Bozo the Clown was on. I remember his blue suit, his bright red hair, and then I think we moved to a little bigger place, not really bigger, but a little different, I guess, and that's when I started remembering some things going on.
Mm-hmm. And she was molesting you as well.
Yep, she was. Her friend was. And she would disappear. So my safe place was in this space. I don't know. You can't really call it a living room because we had a kitchen nook area, which is where I slept. I didn't have a bedroom. And on a cot. And then she had her bedroom. And then there was like an open space, kind of like this right here. And when I was alone for that long, I would sit down in front of the TV. I'd have my butcher knife next to me, and I'd watch sports, the Bruins, the Celtics, the Red Sox, and that was my safe place, just watching sports.
It blows me away. It literally makes me want to cry thinking of a 7-year-old, 8-year-old child alone because his mom is drinking and doing God knows what for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and he's in this apartment with sometimes food, sometimes there would be food in the freezer.
Yeah, I don't remember much about food. I know I had to go to the store some to get food, but I don't even know if I ate.
Right.
I don't remember. I'd eat at school because they had a like a little food truck, and I remember the back doors open. They were clear plexiglass, and there was little square pieces of pizza, and I loved that. But
Yeah, probably. I was asking him like, why were you so, why did you even have any, desire to go to school? To get the shit beat out of him all the time, and he's alone. The mom's not even around, the pretend adopted mom. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's because you got food there. And
that might be. Yeah,
because like you're probably starving.
And I don't really remember the driving factor other than what else would I do? Sit in the apartment all day?
Yeah.
So
there's no sports on during the day.
No sports on during the day.
Just
and
soap
it was
operas.
just something I felt I had to do. I did go to a Catholic school for a minute, and that didn't work out so well either.
Oh.
With it just didn't work out so well.
What do you mean?
The priest. I remember something like that going on.
With the priest at the Catholic school?
Yeah. You had to do your, what do you call it? Where you ask
like
for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And
I forget what it's called. Confession.
Confession. I don't remember extreme details, but I do remember it wasn't appropriate.
Oh my God.
Then I went to Russell Public School, which is a different school, and there's a lot of tough kids in there, and just had to navigate. But all that navigation early in my life just helped me navigate through the rest of my life. I think that's where I got conditioned to adversity and being alone and just dealing with bad shit all the time.
Right.
But I wouldn't give up. I'm sure I did a couple times, but for the most part, I would always just get up and go for it again, from what I can remember.
Right. Well, I think so. You have this one regret that you say when you did give up.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that story?
Well, there's several of them. There's plenty of times I gave up, and I still remember it today.
And then you're just so angry at yourself
for giving up.
Well, tell us about one time.
Okay, one time was actually in Anchorage, Alaska when I was older, and I was helping a friend of mine do his paper route, and this dude that went to the same school, he was the bad guy of the school, and he had his entourage with him at any given time. I remember exactly what it looks like. I remember his name, and he had probably 8 or 9 guys with him, and he came over because I was pretty good at a lot of stuff like, fitness type of stuff, pull-ups, sit-ups, push-ups, that kind of stuff, climbing rope. And because I was super small, super light, but I was super strong for my weight.
5'10" or 11, and like
not even, because when I was a junior in high school, I wrestled at 128 pounds.
128.
So this is when I was 15. No, 13. And so I was super small, still blonde, blue eyes. Not an intimidating factor by any stretch of the imagination.
String bean.
I remember this dude came over and he goes, "So you think you're pretty strong, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he kicked the papers out of my hand because I had a whole thing of newspapers. And he goes, then he spits on the floor and he goes, "Pick it up." And what I should have done is punch a motherfucker right in the mouth, right then and there. But I didn't. I looked at him, then I looked at all his buddies, and I pussied out. I didn't do a damn thing. Mm-hmm. And I still remember that to this day. And that was probably a good catalyst to help me not be that weak going forward.
Yeah, not let it. You always punched back after that.
Mm-hmm. No matter what.
He's just a target of so many people, so many bullies, so many horrible experiences. It's like it's crazy. And luckily, you can't remember everything. I mean, it's maybe a gift. I told him one time, I said, well, maybe that's really a gift that you don't remember every single detail, and so you can just kind of put that back, just leave it alone, and we don't have to visit that again. Yeah. But there's plenty that he does remember, and so I want to go back to Boston because at some point you were, just getting to school every day was a challenge.
Yeah, so going to school, I'm not sure how far away it was. I lived in Cambridge. The school was bordering Belmont, and I don't know how many miles away that was, but it was a ways. And I could either walk, take the bus, or ride. In the beginning, I didn't have a little Stingray bike, but at some point I got a Stingray bike. I think Herb sent it to me for Christmas one year. I only saw him once a year for a couple of weeks or whatever, and because she had custody of me. And
how she got custody, I have no idea.
I have no idea. Well, he didn't want me. That's probably why.
Right.
So if he would have fought for me, he would have got me for sure. But,
right.
So the first step, I'd go to get on the bus. It was right across the street, public bus. And when the bus driver opened the doors, I'd always look inside to the left to see who was in there. And if there was some badasses in there, I would just say, no, thank you. And then I'd either walk or get on my bike and ride to school. But I think most of the time I would just walk, because I don't know if I had, when I get the actual bike, I think I was a little older.
Mm-hmm. So tell them about the night when someone came to the door.
Oh my gosh, that's probably one of the best stories. So
it's horrifying.
This apartment building was, I think, 6 or 7 stories, but it had metal doors with, like I said already, with wire going through the glass, so you couldn't just break the glass. And there was a bunch of buzzers to every apartment, and the bad guys, as well as good people, bad guys would ring the buzzers, ring them all until someone buzzed them in. And, there were times that I buzzed someone in, there were times that I weren't, and I just couldn't figure out what was the best way not to have someone come up and see what's going on, so to speak. And this one night, I think I didn't ring the buzzer, but I'd always go to the door, because the door I could see underneath, and it was a long, dimly lit hallway with an elevator at the end that you couldn't see because it was around the corner. Then there was a door to the stairs, which you could see, but I'd go there and hang out for a minute to see if anybody came up. And this one night, I heard the elevator door open, and my heart started beating. I'm looking underneath the door, and then I see these black shoes, black pants, the bottom of an overcoat. I didn't see anything above that.
And mind you, he's 8, maybe 9.
7, 8.
Yeah, years old.
It happened more than once, but then I could see the footsteps coming towards me. And obviously the anxiety was going up, but our door to the hallway to get out had, 8 or 9 or 10 deadbolts, back then. And I watched his feet come up to the door, and the next thing he's knocking on the door. And I can remember this like it was yesterday. It was probably 57, 58 years ago. And I said, "Who's there?" Because I had to lower my voice, because I had a squeaky little voice when I was a little kid. Aww. And no answer. And then I said, even louder and more deeper, "Who's there?" And no answer again. So I took out this knife that I had. It was a long blade. And I started jabbing at it underneath the door at his feet. And I did it again. And then I backed off. And then he turned around and walked down the hallway and left. So the next step I did, because we had a fire escape on Genevieve's window, and I would go over there to see if he came around the back to come up the fire escape. And I'd sit there for 30, 45 minutes just to make sure he wasn't coming. And I don't think any of the times he ever came up that, but that was a pretty scary scenario, especially when you can remember it so much later in life. And who knows, this was also during the time that the Boston Strangler was loose, so the whole city of Boston was in panic mode. I can't even tell you. I don't know how long. It was a while. George DeSalvo, not George, something DeSalvo was the Boston Strangler. He finally got caught, but the whole city was scared to death that this guy was going to break in and strangle you, because that's what he did. He'd find women, strangle them to death. And so that probably added to the anxiety of the whole thing.
Yeah. And then also, you're 8 years old and
7,
all by
8,
yourself.
9, whatever. I don't remember.
Completely insane.
Okay.
So you turn 13. You can choose what parent. I use the term parent in quotation marks. And then you said, okay, well, I'm going to go live with Herb.
Yeah, I only saw Herb maybe once a year. I know there was years I maybe skipped 2 because I was in we left him when I was 5.5-ish, and then 13. So how long is that? 7.5 years that I maybe saw him 4 or 5 summers for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But when I did, it was so cool because he was a pilot. And, I do have a couple of good memories. I can remember him going fishing in a float plane, and he let me steer it for a minute, and we'd land on a stream where, no one else has ever been, and we'd fish for salmon. So I had some good memories from those weeks, and then I'd have to come home, and I know I would cry for a month or two because I remember she'd take me to the doctors because I couldn't get over it. And so when I turned 13, I finally had the choice to decide who I wanted to live with, and I chose him. And that's when I moved to Anchorage, Alaska again.
He was stationed.
Yeah, where he worked for the Federal Aviation Administration, and got out of there. And I didn't see Genevieve for, I don't know, another 10, 12 years after that.
Well, that's another great story that we're going to tell next.
Yeah.
So you're in Anchorage, but then you had a couple of years in Oahu.
That was
later?
That was later.
Okay.
That was high school years.
Yeah. So Oahu was, everybody thinks, oh, Hawaii, it's so beautiful. Let's get married there. We did get married, actually, in Maui. But back in the 70s, is this the 70s
73.
by now? Yeah. So in the 70s.
72, 73. Yep.
Again, with the white hair, blonde hair, blue eyes.
Holly boy.
They were ruthless. Yeah. It was horrible. They were constantly beating the shit out of him. And then you had to change schools, right? He got you into that private school.
Yeah, Punahou.
And it was a little bit, it wasn't even better, was it?
No, it was a lot better.
A little better? Okay.
Punahou was a private school, very exclusive. I have no idea how I even got in there or how Herb got me in there, but they had a policy that if you got in a fight, you were expelled. And nobody wanted to be expelled because it was a huge water polo school, a huge football school. In fact, Musi Tatupu, that's where he went to school. He ended up being a pretty well-known football player for the NFL.
Oh.
And a lot of water polo guys came out of that school, a lot of wrestlers. So it was, the curriculum was super hard. So that was, and I was there for a year. And then we moved to Arizona.
That's when you went to Mesa. And was he stationed there or he just retired?
He retired, and that's when we moved to Mesa, moved into a mobile home park.
Oh, my gosh.
And, I'm 17 years old, living in a mobile home park with a bunch of old people.
Like a retirement village.
Yeah,
you have to be 55 plus.
I call them a wobble box.
Double wide. That's how they say it in Texas.
Yeah.
I'm going to get myself a double wide, and I'm going to fix it up real nice.
Yeah, I was the only kid that lived in the whole neighborhood again. And especially the only younger person. So all that did was lead me to
a bunch of degenerates.
It's
fucking awesome.
I started going the wrong way again, and not for the betterment of society or myself. And did a lot of drugs and just didn't do a lot of good stuff. That's for sure.
Did a lot of stupid shit.
Yep, a lot of stupid shit.
But this one's the best stupidest shit you've ever done. So
what?
Your drive back to Genevieve, back to East.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, you gotta laugh. It's so dumb.
A couple of the dudes I was hanging out with, they were dealing drugs, and
they were.
Well, they were, and I was, but weed and speed. That was pretty much it at that time.
What were the things? They're called something else now.
White Crosses.
Yeah, what are they?
Speed. Well, I don't know what they are now, but it was little white tablets of speed, and
we need to look that up to see exactly what White Crosses are.
Yeah, it's just
what are they?
Pure speed for sure.
Oh my God.
And so I wanted to go back to Boston and sell a bunch of drugs to the guys that I kind of grew up with, because that's what they were all doing.
Because they were so great.
They were so awesome. And so we sent a package back to Jen's place. She lived in Manchester then. She had moved away from Cambridge. I forgot about that, but I saw her then. I didn't remember that till you just said it. But,
yeah.
So we sent this big box with like 4 kilos of rainbow weed, we called it back in the day.
What could possibly go wrong?
And a bunch of other, back then they didn't have Vicodin,
Opioids? You're talking about
Well,
like
they
Xanax
didn't
or like,
call them that. They were Reds, Seconal, Blues,
I don't know.
and Reds and Blues and Yellow Jackets was what they had back then. And so I had this little yellow Corolla, and we sent this box back to her, and we hop in this little yellow Corolla, me and this dude. He had long blonde hair at the time. And I'm taking these White Crosses because it's going to be a 3.5, 4 day journey in this little Corolla. And he had his little baby German Shepherd in the back seat. And I was taking these whites. I'm drinking beer. I'm smoking cigarettes. I'm smoking weed. And he never drove once. He was just a passenger. He slept and all. I just stayed up the whole time. And I remember one of the times it was the middle of the night, and the Corolla had 120 miles an hour speed limit max. I was probably doing 110 and just flying around these corners. I'm high as a fucking kite. I mean, I can't even tell you how high I was. And so there's another life-saving moment. But I did stupid shit, like I started hallucinating is what happened.
Right.
And one night, Danny actually woke up. I'm driving down the highway the wrong way. And he woke up and he saw all these lights coming towards us. And he's like, dude, you're going the wrong way. And I didn't even know it. Another time I pulled over an 18-wheeler because I thought it was a buddy of mine. This big dude jumps out. It's like, yeah, what do you want? And I'm like, oh, I thought you were a buddy of mine. You know, so it was pretty crazy. But then we had some issues with the car brakes, I think, because I could remember hearing this. So we ended up, you know, we didn't have much money either, obviously. All the money we had was in the drugs we sent back to her house.
In a box of drugs that you mailed.
In a box of drugs. We also had a big baggie of stuff in the Corolla. In the back seat, they had this little compartment where you could put stuff in, and the frame didn't go down to the ground. So we put this couple of big baggies in there with all kinds of drugs too. And we kind of finally got the car fixed, but back then we didn't have navigation. I didn't have a map. I didn't know where the hell I was going. But by the grace of God, somehow, the next thing we're pulling into Manchester, we pull up to her. She was part of a 10-plex or something. I just remember a bunch of apartments all in a row. It wasn't like the last place where she lived. It was certainly a lot better. But I knocked on the door. She opens the door. And I'm worn out. I haven't slept in 4 days. You know, I probably smelt awful. I'm just totally strung out. And
every mother's dream.
She goes, you have to leave. And I'm like, what do you mean leave? I just got here. And she goes, well, I saw the box and I didn't know what to do. So I called my sister and she said, you need to open it up. And so I opened it up and I saw all his drugs. And so I turned it into the police. And I'm like, you what? And she goes, yeah, they're going to be looking for you. And I said, I don't care. I can't go another step. I need to sleep. So I sat in a chair. Next thing I know, I don't know how long it was, maybe a couple hours, and I feel this hand on my shoulder, and I look up, and it's this detective with a detective hat on, and he arrested me and took me to the police station where he had all my weed sitting on his table, all these drugs. And I said, those aren't mine. And he goes, well, they're in the box you sent to your mother. And I said, not my box. And he goes, well, we don't allow drugs in this town, so you have to leave this town now. And I'm like, well, I don't have any money. My car's broken down. So how am I going to leave town? So that's where the military came. It was either that or go to reform school or whatever they were going to do with me back then.
Right.
So I needed to get into somewhere fast and get out of there. So I visited the recruitment department for the Marines and the Army. I chose the Army because I'd heard about the Marines and I thought the Army would be a little less hard, but I could get in right away. You know, I was smart enough to go to OCS school, which is Officer Candidate School, but I needed to get in like in 24 hours. So sure as shit, like probably 2 days later, I'm on my way to Fort Polk, Louisiana. And a couple nights before Christmas, I was getting my head shaved. And there you go.
So crazy. So they tell him that he can do 4 years. He's going to go to Germany, but then only for you thought it was only going to be a couple months in Germany, right? And it turned out to be
the recruiter
stay there.
told me it was going to be, I do my basic in the AIT, which typically is 4 months, but I got sick with bronchial pneumonia, so I had to recycle. So I ended up being at Fort Polk for 6-7 months. And when I got to Germany, I was already high. So listen to this one. So I get to Germany, And, you know, a bunch of the old timers, as they called them, like jacking with the new guys, because there's, you know, this is Germany back in 1974, 75.
Okay.
And so the hashish, the heroin, I mean, you name it, it was everywhere. And so at lunch or dinner that night, me and this other dude, who we came over together, he lived in Arizona too, but we met on the plane, and we ended up being in the same post together, same barracks, which is kind of weird. And they spiked our punch with acid. So the next thing I know, we're tripping all night long, and I don't like acid at all. I'd tried it one other time before that. And we're tripping all night long. The next morning, we're in the captain of the post office. I think it was captain, maybe it was colonel, I don't know, major. And I remember sitting here, Charlie was sitting there, and he's got this pencil in his hand, and he's going, one thing we don't tolerate on this post are drugs. And as he's flipping the pencil around, I'm watching the pencil, I'm watching tracers, because I'm still hallucinating from the acid.
God.
So that was the start of that journey.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the drugs did not slow down after that.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. And
you had some amazing tattoos done while you were in the military.
Yeah, I did. We went to Sailor Bill, drove a yellow Cadillac. We're all out of our minds, you know, because we didn't even know we had tats till the next day.
Oh, my God.
And Sailor Bill, I ended up getting a dagger with a rose, a Leo the lion, because that's what I am, a Leo, and then a marijuana leaf.
Beautiful marijuana leaf.
On this arm.
Gorgeous.
And,
now, these are works of art that he ended up getting lasered off later.
Yeah.
They were horrible.
Now they're in again. Now I get 2 more new ones on my back.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a little different.
Yeah, a little different.
Actual art. Unlike the 70s. But what's really weird about our journey is that it's funny, on our first date, he goes, so the age difference is going to, you know, bother you. And he didn't even know that I knew how old he was. And I said, you mean the fact that you graduated from high school the year I was born? And he was like,
oh,
how did you know that?
That
I'm like,
hurts. Facebook?
Yeah. Well, he put the year that he graduated from high school, and I was like, oh, well, that's when I was born. So he's literally in Germany the same time my family's in Germany. Now, I happen to be 6 months old, but that's okay. So that's what's weird. So our paths have crossed, you know, many, many times before we, you know, ever met or even got together. So Germany, you finally get out and you come back to Mesa. So I really want to talk about this is where your quote, you know, career started. And you have a really interesting, because he's been a general manager in the car business for 30 years, probably 30 years was your first general manager position. Yeah. So he's been running car dealerships for a long time, but how he got started is so interesting. He came home and you were waiting tables at the Scottsdale Conference Center.
Scottsdale Conference Center. I got a job there, and I was doing room service. And these are back in the days where guys wore Angel Flight bell bottoms. I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
We got to find a picture of them and put them up.
They're like stretchy polyester.
I have no idea.
But that's what all the guys wore back then, bell bottoms. But I did.
So they're all wearing now again.
Yeah. But that's when I started finding out. Before I go to that, I want to tell them when I finally realized that I had some salesmanship abilities. Is when I had fire duty in Germany. We used to go to Hornsfeld or Grafenbier, which is where we did our war maneuvers and stuff like that. And at that time I drove a Deuce and a Half, which is a big truck. And I had fire duty this one night in this tent, and it's cold as shit up there. And I was talking shit about one of the guys, and he happened to be Asian. And couple days later, I'm taking a shortcut through the tent to get to the mess hall, and there's no bunks in this tent. It's just empty. But I was taking a shortcut because there's a lot of snow and it's cold outside. And I hear this flap close behind me.
Uh-oh.
And I look back, and it's this dude. And I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. And he goes, I said, what's up? Something along, I don't know the exact words, but I'm like, what's up? And he goes, I'm going to kick your ass. And I'm like, why are you going to kick my ass? And he goes, because you were talking shit about me 2 nights ago. He heard everything I said. And I'm like, oh, well, I really didn't mean it, but I could see he started undoing his boots.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, uh-oh, because I know this guy knows shit I don't know, and he's going to kill me. And so that's when the salesmanship moment came in. I don't remember his name, but I said, I'm kind of a crazy dude, right? And everybody knew I was, because I was kind of guy that jumped out of a second-story window for whatever. And
because who doesn't,
Because who doesn't, back
It's just what you do.
It's what you do.
You're a psychopath.
You're a psychopath with
Please
a little bit
continue.
of drugs and alcohol going on. But
a little bit.
I said, I'm crazy, and you know that, right? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, one of these nights when you're sleeping, you're going to have to think about, is that crazy son of a bitch going to come over and cut my throat with a P38? That was a can opener back in the day.
Nice.
And I said, because I will. Every night you go to sleep, you're going to have to wonder if I'm going to come over there and fuck you up when you're sleeping. And when I said that, he looked at me and he goes, okay, but don't you ever talk shit about me again. I'm like, no problem.
Okay.
Deal solved. And that's when I realized, wow, you just talked your way out of that one.
There you go.
Remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're waiting tables. Well, you go from room service to the waiting tables.
So room service, but I was doing pretty good at that. We didn't have trays and stuff back then. The conference center was super long. It was in Scottsdale on McCormick Ranch. But I could put 9 plates on my tray with another 6, 7 glasses and walk 250 yards like in, a minute. And then they wanted me to work the banquets, and I did that. Then they wanted me to work the dining room, and that's where all the salespeople. So this was the Scottsdale Conference Center, and it was like the Four Seasons today. It was super nice.
It's like
it
the
was
shit,
super new.
Brand new. That's where everybody had their meetings and
100%.
Conferences.
So these guys that worked on the sales force that used to, there's a bee. Oh, there's a hummingbird right there.
Yay!
I
love
so
our
cool.
hummingbird feeder.
Sorry, we're in Karen's office, and she's got a hummingbird feeder right outside.
They're so amazing.
Super,
go get it. Go
super
get it. Go
cool.
get it.
Yeah,
Dave is going to
it.
get it.
Dave's gonna
They don't
take a
spend
picture.
very long. They don't spend very long there.
Gotta go right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay.
So anyway, I started working the dining room, and that's where all the salespeople used to bring their prospective clients who were CEOs, CFOs, COOs of their prospective companies to come out and do an event.
This is the salespeople for the conference center.
For the conference center. And I'd serve them, and I was so jealous because they're always in suits, and they'd have cocktails with their clients at lunchtime, and they were just badass. And I'm like, I want to do that. And so I went to the sales manager, and I said, I want to be one of those guys. And he goes, well, you got to get some experience. And I said, here it comes. Well, how do I do that?
How do you do that?
And he goes, well, I happen to know this guy that has a salesmanship school, and I'm going to give you his name and number. Well, remember, back then you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have pagers, you didn't have computers. If you wanted to talk to somebody, you literally had to go to their door to say, hey, I'm John, blah, blah, blah. So I don't remember how I hooked up with him, but he took me to the bank.
So this is it's 1978. Are we in 1980 yet?
No.
No, because you're 20.
I got out of the military, so probably 78, 79.
79. So this is 1979
Yeah.
or 80. It's right around there.
Yeah, you'd just been born a couple of years before that.
I was a wee toddler.
We toddler. And so he gave me this name of this dude, and the next thing I remember, he had this cool car, but he took me to the bank. I borrowed $1,500. I didn't have any credit history whatsoever, but somehow he had
some bank gave him $1,500.
Well, he had a relationship with the bank, so I borrowed $1,500. I gave it to him.
Well, that's like 20 grand now.
Well, but I joined the salesmanship course.
This is 40 years ago.
And it was all paperback
in binders. Yeah.
Because they didn't have any other tools back then. But that's when I
wish you would've
started
kept
learning
that.
about trial closes, how to harmonize with people. And so it was like a 6-8 month course. And I got done with that, and now I'm like, I'm ready to go. Okay, so I go back to Scottsdale Conference Center, and the whole time I'm still working for them and doing all my stuff. Like in the dining room, I was really good at, flambe type of drinks because we'd set it on fire and go from gobble to gobble, bananas, Foster, all that kind of stuff. I was always good at doing the show. And
that's a good skill.
so I saw the sales manager again. I said, okay, I did what you said. I went to the school, and I'm ready to sell. I want to be one of your guys. And he goes, well, you still don't have any experience and you're way too young. Most of my salespeople are in their mid-30s, and we're dealing with 40-year-old, 45-year-old, 50-year-old CEOs, COs, you know, and you don't have, I mean, you aren't old enough to deal with these
and you
people.
looked like you were 12.
Yeah, when I was 20, I looked probably like I was 12 or 13.
Because you're still so teeny. I mean,
teeny.
you were what? You still
I
had,
don't know, small.
even if you were, I don't even think you had grown all the way to 6'2", right? So you're 6'1" or whatever, but 140 pounds. I mean, just so skinny. They called him string bean in the military.
Yeah, and they also said I was chicken legs and stuff. But
yeah. Oh, that's
anyway,
right.
he said, we can't put you on the force. And I'm like, well, now what do I do? And he goes, go sell cars. I'm like, okay, where do I do that? And he had no idea. So I started going through the paper, looking for ads from car dealers. And I found this one ad. It was from Westward Pontiac, right on the price, right on the corner, 7th Street and Highland. And they sold Pontiacs and Hondas. And I went and interviewed. And, of course, they hired me, but they hire anybody, as I found out later. You know, it's one of those.
I thought you went to Lou Grubb first.
Westward Pontiac. Then I went to Lou Grubb later.
Oh, okay.
So Westward Pontiac, I was like 20 years old.
Someone told you Westward Pontiac hires everybody and to go down there. Who was that?
I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, because you asked somebody for a job.
Oh, you're right. I went to Lou Grubb.
Yeah.
Joe Gambino was the sales manager.
Joe Gambino.
And that was like the store of the stores back then. You had guys like Vito Giardino, Speed Bellsmith. They were like high rollers, you know, selling a bunch of rides.
He's like the godfather.
Making a bunch of money.
He still owns a Chevy store, doesn't he? Joe Gambino?
The Gambinos do, but I think they sold it.
Oh.
I'm not sure. But anyway.
I don't know.
He said, do you have any experience? I'm like, no. And he goes, well, you need to have experience before you work here. And that's when I said, okay, where do I
get that?
And he goes, go to Westford Pontiac. They hire anybody. I'm like, okay, where are they? And he told me where they were, 7th Street and Highland. Lou Grubb was on Camelback and 29th Avenue back in the day. And so I went there and interviewed with them. And, of course, they hired me on the spot because they hire anybody. You know, they just need a warm body.
Right.
Yeah. It was the first TO store in Phoenix, Arizona, which is like a turn store. It's a hardcore store.
TO, turnover?
Turnover, yeah. Turnover.
High turnover?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, everybody does it differently now, but so you're saying you get anybody, they'll hire anybody because they immediately just go get the managers. The manager does the whole deal, basically. You're just scumbags out, you know,
you're just
peasants,
meeting someone and then trying to land them on a car, then the manager takes over from there.
Yeah, so they don't even learn how to sell. They don't even learn anything.
Right.
Anyway, so your first day, it's in the middle of the summertime.
This is a great story where I learned about don't pre-qualify. Don't judge anybody from their cover. And so I'm in the showroom, and there's some guys that are long-term. They'd been there for years, so, you know, they think they know what's going on. And one of the guys was named Gino.
Which one had their shoes melt?
Oh, that was Joe. But, yeah, he wasn't there yet.
Oh, he wasn't. Okay.
And so
it got so hot that he was literally, his shoes soles melted on the asphalt.
Yeah. He was wearing Famolaris. I don't even know if they
Welcome
make
to
them anymore.
Phoenix.
Big soles, and one day we're talking out on the hot asphalt, and he couldn't move. We were going to walk, and he was like stuck, and we looked down, and there was 2 pancakes under his shoes where it just melted to the asphalt.
That's
but anyway,
crazy.
So there was this little old lady walking on, it's probably August, 115 degrees, and she's walking through the new cars, and she's got a shopping bag, and she's wearing an overcoat, and the guys that know everything said, hey, Stanley, there's an up. Go get it. And I'm like, okay.
Thought it was a huge
I didn't know
joke.
what else to do.
Joke's on you.
Joke's on me. So I went out, started talking to her. Make a long story short, she had been cleaning houses for years. She drove an old Bonneville. Next thing I know, I'm taking her to the bank to get cash. She has cash, and she bought a brand new Bonneville, traded in her Bonneville, and my max commission back in that day was $242.50, and that's what I made that one sale. And I'm like, that's more than any one day or 2 days that I've made in the restaurant business. And all those guys were so pissed off at me because I actually made the sale. But that's when I learned the lesson. Don't prejudge anybody. You never know.
You have no idea.
You have no idea.
An overcoat and a grocery bag, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, they thought she was homeless.
Right. And there are a lot of homeless people around that in that that's something that you could easily assume because there's homeless people everywhere in that area. It's just
Right.
like, it's so important. Like you just never, we tell our people this all the time at the dealerships. Like you have no idea. Stop whatever you think and go see,
Right.
solve the problem. Right.
Right.
Which is hilarious. So back in the day, 200 and what, how much?
$242.50.
Your very first day, he makes a max commission on a car. Everybody didn't even think she was going to buy or be able to buy, didn't even think she had a home. And today, that's about $4,000 in 1 hour. Your first day, first hour in the car business.
I thought I'd arrived.
That's your definition of success.
Yeah.
$242.
It was at that moment. Hey,
Yeah,
I sold a car my first day.
Yeah.
Now what?
Right. Now what? Okay. And then you took a break from that and then you were doing mortgages for a while. Or not.
No, I was doing real estate because one of
commercial real estate.
some other young kid, he was my age, he started selling real estate. He sold $1 million his first 4 months, which equates to about $32,000 in 4 months, first time out. And I'm like, holy shit. Because I was only making, I don't know, probably $2,000 or whatever. And so I'm like, I want to do that. So I studied and got my real estate license, started selling real estate, but I didn't do real well because you had to be a self-starter and you had to be disciplined. I wasn't disciplined enough. And I needed a place to go to. If you're late, you're fired, that kind of stuff. But to get up whenever I want and go do whatever I want. So I wasn't really
It's a tough one.
good at it, you know, and I was so young that people didn't want to, I felt that they didn't want to trust some young kid with no experience that was driving. I don't even know. I think I was driving an Oldsmobile 88, which was brand new.
It was new?
Yeah, I bought it brand new. I don't even know how I did that. And I had the real estate magnets on my doors.
Seriously?
But when you saw me, it was like, I'm not giving you my real estate to list.
Oh.
No way.
Like a stick-on sign with like your face on it? Like
Not my face, but the name of the company. And
yikes.
Stuff. So did that for a couple of years. Then,
well, but you learned a really good lesson. So the deal that you was like, it was in the bank. It was like ready to go. That big, huge deal. Remember?
Yeah, that was actually business opportunities.
Right.
As I switched to that for a minute, I had a big parts warehouse listed, and one of the senators of Arizona at the time owned it, and he gave me the listing, and I got a buyer. Still know the guy today. Well, there were several buyers. They were from Chicago. They were going to buy it, and the commission was going to be, because I was double dipping it, listing and selling, it was going to be 40, 50K, and it was all done, ready to go. It was going to close in like 2 days, and one of the buyers got killed in a plane crash on the way to Phoenix, so that deal went south. And so I'd already spent half the money, you know, and then all of a sudden I had no money. And I learned the lesson that you can't count it before it's right there in your hand. You
don't have the money.
And
so you have it.
Guess what happened when I knew that sale was coming? I quit working. You know, it's like, fuck, I got this made. I'll just hang out and party and spend money I don't have and all that kind of stuff. And then that went away. It's like, now what?
Oh my gosh.
So, but it was a big lesson. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's
all kinds of lessons there.
Yeah. We just told that to the kids. It's like, man, don't count it. It's not yours. It doesn't exist until it's actually in your account.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then, you know, especially for our son who's doing mortgages, it's just like, you got to just keep taking action every single day, every day. You might necessarily see the, the effect or any reward from any discipline or any daily action. Just keep doing it anyway.
Well, that's what I didn't know.
Ebbs
back
and
then.
flows.
I didn't know what I know today, that it's continuous action and going through all the ups and downs, all the failures. And that's what makes you resilient. That's what gives you the drive to keep on going. I didn't know that. I wanted instant gratification.
Right.
And then when I got gratification, it wasn't ever instant, but when I got gratification, then I kicked back. You know, took a vacation. It's like, okay, I'm good. I didn't realize the momentum law of the universe, that you have, when you have a momentum, you got to keep going and going and going. And when you stop doing all the stuff to get you success, that's when it's going to slam you in the face. And it might not happen in a day or 2 days or a week or 2 weeks,
months.
But it will happen.
It will happen.
You will get absolutely punched in the mouth. Then you're going to start deeper in the hole than you did in the beginning. And it took me a long, long time.
Yeah. That message. There's always momentum. You're either going up or down.
Yeah.
There's no staying the
Downwards.
same.
I was better with the momentum downwards.
I was super good
I
at
seemed
that.
to have a lot more fun doing that than actually grinding my balls off and working hard.
Which is funny because anybody who knows him now, he's like the world's biggest hustler of all time. I mean, he's insane. He works 6 days a week. He has for 40 years. And so it's funny to see, okay, when he was younger, he would kind of just like hang out and, just kind of rest after a sale. I think that's really easy. It's an easy trap to get into in real estate too, because you have one big check and then you might not have any checks for 3 or 4 months. And then so you're like, I'm fine. I can kick it for a couple months. And then you lose all of your momentum and then you don't get another check.
Yep.
So you go back into the car business.
Then I went back into the car business because I needed a job. I needed some cash. And, I got fired from business brokerage because I was...
Oh, that's right.
First time I ever got fired. I forgot about that. And I was really good at listing businesses, but in businesses, at least back then, if you had 100 listings, maybe 5 would sell. So you had a lot of failure to have one little piece of success. Mm-hmm. But I did have a carpet cleaning / floor cleaning business that was my listing. I sold it and I made 10 grand. And that was like 2 days before I got fired because the guy that I worked with, it was his brokerage, found out that I was also moonlighting in the car business to just keep my cash flow going. So he fired me. So then I just started doing cars full time, and I never stopped after that.
How did you get to ABC Nissan?
I was working for Lou Grubb, Mitsubishi, and my name was getting out there because I used to buy other makes and models. I started all makes and model company way back then.
So basically, you're employed for Lou Grubb Mitsubishi, but he was like the first person to turn that into his own business, his own private, like buying and selling, like a broker. Now we have brokers all over the place. So I don't know, any of them still in business still? Okay, well, we have brokers who do this, but back then there were no brokers. You just go buy whatever car you want from the dealership or whatever it is. But he was there, but he was also, okay, so if someone would want like a Honda or a Oldsmobile or whatever it is, even though he didn't personally sell it, he would go buy them and sell it to the customer. He would just get whatever car the customer needed, which was super revolutionary. And it was like way ahead of his time back then. In the early 80s, nobody did that.
That's when I realized that I was good at developing relationships, and because I'm a little bit OCD, a little bit of a perfectionist. And even back then, I didn't understand what I was doing, but I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve them. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be the best car guy they ever had. And so then when they wanted a product that I didn't have, they'd call me. And so I started networking to see where I could get other products. And that's how I ran into John at ABC Nissan, because I'd buy Nissans from him, and he recruited me. Mm. But I'll never forget, at Mitsubishi, one of the old timers, again, his name was Sal, and he told me I'd never make more than $40,000 in a year selling cars. And so that was my first, like, fuck you. That was my first little, like, sign of fuel. I'll show you, mm-hmm. Because no one believed in me ever anyway.
Right.
And so I said, I'll show you. I'm going to make more than 40 grand a year. So I started selling a bunch of rides, and then they recruited me over at ABC and on from there.
Yeah. So after a couple of years, though, he's being modest, which I don't know why he is being modest, but so he had a crew of like 5 people basically doing all the paperwork, and from a landline and a Rolodex. Like, people that are younger than us don't even know what a Rolodex
Card
is.
box too.
Yeah,
3x5 cards where you have
staple
January,
them
February,
to the
March,
page.
April, May, and you had your leads in every month. But you couldn't call them. I don't think we even had rotary phones back in the day, and maybe we did at ABC. We had rotary phones.
Just landlines,
that's it.
No Rolodex. Computers. Yeah. No computers, no cell phones, no pagers, no nothing. And his crew, just him and his people that were helping him with all the paperwork, sold 120 cars, sometimes 140 cars a month. So just to put that in perspective, most new car franchises don't sell 150 new cars every month, especially right now. It depends on the make and the market and the size of the city, all that stuff. There's the Toyota dealers who sell 1,000 cars a month, but that's very few and far between. But a lot of them, that's a pretty decent month for most people, from most makes, most cities, most models, blah, 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 blah. He was doing that by himself.
Another one.
Oh, awesome.
They're coming.
Yes.
I just put a new, look at, that's a different one.
It's a different one.
Cool.
This is
Sorry,
the
we
coolest.
just have these hummingbirds outside there.
I'm
They're
obsessed.
like little angels. We live on Hummingbird Way.
Yeah.
And so hummingbird is our favorite bird.
It's the coolest.
They're like little angels. And
He's gone.
We know all about them. And every time we see one hanging out at our house, it's like, God's looking down upon us, spreading good things to us to spread to other people.
I always think it's my granny.
Yeah.
It's your mom.
Yeah.
Saying hi.
My mom that I never met, she's just coming down to
real mom.
Check it out. Yeah.
She knows you're here.
She knows I'm here.
Yeah. I love it. We love hummingbirds. Anyway.
Where were we?
I really want to talk. There's so many things I want to talk about, but I don't want it to be 4 hours.
Oh, so we'll do it next time.
And what I think that I want you to share is I really want to talk about success and what it means and how to get to the level where you have gotten. And I want people to understand it's not like, he was selling 140 cars and then just freaking, smooth sailing and rainbows and, freaking butterflies for the next 40 years. And that's it, that's all you need to talk about. I mean, it was, you had so much adversity. And I think that I want people to know a little bit about, kind of the ups and downs and how your definition of success changed. Because at the beginning, I think you had that. I was asking him, what is it? What gave you that drive? And to me, he wasn't really even, you couldn't even really articulate it. You're like, I don't know. But I think so many people didn't believe in him, and nobody believed in him, supported him, cheered him on, said, good job. Literally 0 people his entire life, which is insane. And he used that as fuel. He used that as say, you doubt me, then I'm going to prove it to you. And I'm going to prove you wrong. And so many people, they don't have support. They don't have anybody as a mentor. They don't have any role models. They don't have anybody telling them a good job. And then they just freeze and they just feel like I can't do anything. I'm stuck. But you can also use that as fuel and say, you know what, motherfucker, I can do anything I want to do. And you saying I can't, that you can use that. And you can say, well, I'm going to just prove you wrong. Just prove them wrong. Right. And you did that so many times. So you used to say, you want to talk about your goal, right? Your goal was the house, big house in Scottsdale. What was it? You had a list of things that you wanted to accomplish because you thought that would make you happy.
Yeah. So most of my younger life, my purpose was survival.
Yeah, right.
I was in flight or fight most of the time. And so I didn't think about success or having nice shit.
Just get something to eat.
I just wanted to eat.
And not get the shit beat out of you.
Not get my ass kicked. But as I got older, my human needs, which we all have 6, certainty, uncertainty, growth, love.
Contribution
and significance. Mine, early in my career, once I started getting some traction in the car business, was significance. I wanted to be the guy because everybody always told me I'd never be the guy. I'd never be anything. I'd just be a loser. And so I wanted to prove everybody wrong. And I had believed that myself. That was my identity. Well, I can't do it. He's lucky like all the shit you hear today, that was me. Yeah. I can't be that guy the way I grew up, and I don't have the brain power. I'm not that smart of a guy. And
you didn't go to college, or you didn't finish college, took a couple classes.
I survived. But I didn't link the two together. So it was, it was significance. And that's finally changed to, of course, love. I didn't even want love back in the day because I didn't even know what love meant.
Right.
No one had ever said, I love you.
Right.
And so how the hell did I know what love meant? And so then it shifted recently to contribution and growth. I want to grow and I want to contribute. I want to help other people.
Well, but you learned that from having the biggest need, or your biggest need being significance. Yeah. And that was your driver because you weren't significant to anybody. your entire life. And so you're going to prove it to all those motherfuckers and show them that you can be successful. And then you did. And so what was your list? What did you think that you were going to bring you happiness?
As I started gaining traction, making some money, I wanted a big house in Scottsdale with a little blonde wife, 2 blonde kids, a circular driveway with gates. And I don't know how many years later, that's exactly what I got.
Exactly what you did.
And, but then it was like, okay, now what? Now I have this. So it started, then I had to have the car, the watches, the belts, this, that, and the other. And I was pretty
Which you
good.
did.
Yeah, which I did, but then I was empty. And because I didn't have people that I really cared about sharing it with me. And
yeah, so once your marriage starts deteriorating, you were pulling up to what your dream home, your dream life, your dream, everything you thought would make you happy. And then it's not, you don't even want to go inside.
Don't even want to go in, don't even want to be there. And yeah, so even though I had what I thought I wanted, that I dreamed about, that I manifested, I was the emptiest I'd ever been.
Yeah.
And I had more shit than I'd ever have. I had what I thought was outlined
the
as
definition of success.
And I was empty as shit. So that's when I started derailing again, with the, Vicodin and alcohol and never to this point of insanity, so to speak, but still way too much. And my outlet was when I'd get home, I'd go out to the breezeway because I had a bar and arena, and I'd sit there and have a cocktail and listen to the horses eat. And that was like my meditation period. That was like my sanctuary.
Right.
And then work
with the animals,
sanctuary, with the horses.
Notice how it wasn't inside the house.
No.
And what did Eddie that day when you were taking out some pills?
Oh, when I was getting a little carried away, when I was actually the GM of a Nissan store, my GSM, who had been a crack addict and spent 6, 7, 8 months in Tent City with the stripes on, and I hired him off the street as a lot attendant. He became a salesman, then he became my used car manager, then he became my GSM, so I had faith in him, and probably the first person in his life that had faith in him.
Yeah.
I took him in,
and
then he became my guy, and when I was getting a little carried away, taking pain pills,
too many pain pills, yeah,
even drinking, that kind of stuff, he sat me down one day and he goes, "John, did you ever think about that everything you have and everything you've built could, one snap of a finger, could be gone?" And that was like, whoa, that was powerful. And that's when I stopped all that bullshit. Because I'd been through so many things, and he wants me to be that catalyst or vehicle to help other people when they're dealing with some of the same shit. Because I've dealt with them, I still deal with them, I've overcome them, and it's taught me to be mentally strong, super mentally strong. I still have that bitch voice, obviously, but, I've had open heart surgery, I've had cancer, I've been shot at, I've shot at people, I've been beat up, I've been beating people up, I've been raped, molested, abandoned, you name it. There's not a whole lot of stories within my big story that someone else hasn't been through or aren't going through or won't go through.
Right.
So that's how we got on it.
Well, I want to also talk about, the family. It's not really enough to say, well, I got the wife and the 2 kids and the circle driveway. I had all those things you thought was going to be happy. And it wasn't like it was all unhappiness. And, I believe that, that word soulmate is thrown out a lot. And I believe that we're soulmates. We were supposed to be together, but that doesn't mean we weren't supposed to be with our exes. We were it was totally meant to be. You got 2 amazing, awesome kids out of the deal who are 27 and 24, almost 25, right? Mm-hmm. 98. And you have so many good memories as well. But when your marriage is disintegrating, it's very hard to be happy about everything else, about anything else, really. So our story about how we came together is a really good one, but we also don't have time to tell all of that.
We'll do it next time.
But when we first got together, he had been away from his marital house for quite some time. I don't know, 2 years or so, but he never filed for divorce. And so as soon as we went on our first date, we went on our second date, and he said, I'm going to marry this girl in Maui. And I go, well, don't you think you need to get a divorce first? He was like, oh, shit. So we had to do all of that.
Gotta pull it. Gotta do it.
You got to do it. It's just like.
That was painful too.
Yeah. I mean, he knew it was going to be horrible. It was horrible. It took over a year, and $1 billion in attorney's fees, and a lot of stress. It was an extremely stressful time. It was a very difficult time.
For you too.
Yeah, it was. I'm not used to attorneys coming after me every 5 seconds, and I got to stop everything I'm doing, and then I got to find some whatever they demand that we find, and we have to send it over, and just so much brain damage. And
if you hadn't been with me through that journey,
you'd probably still be married to her.
Yeah, not living with her, but
you
probably still
even
married, because I just wanted to avoid the pain.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't see the pleasure on the other side of the pain.
Yeah. You just knew it was going to be a nightmare.
Painful, expensive, all of it. And I just didn't want to deal with it.
All his money was going to be gone.
To deal with.
Yeah. So, but avoidance, but that's a really good point. I mean, avoiding that means you can't be with somebody else, not really. And so you finally meet me, and we want to be together. And it's like, it forces you to go through the painful crap for a year. And then you look at it now, and what did I keep saying? It's like, whatever the alimony is, what is it?
Happiness check.
It's your happiness check.
Yep.
I mean, it's really difficult to lose, half of your wealth. And then on top of that, you're paying all of the bills for the family, and you're paying alimony on top of that during the entire thing, while all of your money is being divided up and given away. And then to keep making payments to a person that you don't want to be with anymore, it's very stressful. And I kept saying, it's okay, because it means we can be together. So I said, John, if you ask God, how much does it cost to be happy? And his answer was, whatever, 3 million. Then say, okay, then, because that's worth it, right? We'll always make more money. We'll just make more money. And that really helped us get through. And I just remember going, it's got to be worth it. We just got to get through this. It's got to be worth it, because we're together. And that's what happiness is worth. So it's worth all the money, right?
But the metaphor, right? Yes. We have this thing that if she asks me a direct question, because I'm this way 100%, you don't want to beat around the bush or an answer to the answer. You want the actual answer. That's what she just did.
Yeah. So if you're going to answer the question, what would the answer be?
Right.
That's what
It would be right.
So, yeah, we finally get together, and then your company of 18 years, by the way, decides to squeeze him out of his Toyota jobs position. So he's general manager of the Toyota store for a really long time. That's why we met, and where he was when we met. And then it was time to look for a job. Now, the problem with this company is a public company and super great people. They have a non-compete, which means for 12 months straight, if you leave, you can't work anywhere, any dealership within 50 miles from Tempe, Arizona, which is right in the middle of town. So you can't work at any dealership in Phoenix. Great. Okay, perfect. So that means we're going to have to move. Or 10 miles from any of their owned dealership. I won't say the name. Who cares?
No.
Any dealership they own, and they own how many dealerships? 300? Yeah. They're in every city and in every market in the country. Great. So we found one that was more than 10 miles away, and it was in Tucson. Now, we're not fans of Tucson. Nothing against Tucson. Our daughter went to U of A. We love U of A. I thought it was a great school. And she had a great education, great time. But Tucson itself, I never wanted to live there. I've been there 1,000 times, and I just don't want to live there. I don't want to move. I just love where we were, and we were living in Gilbert, in a house that we just built, and it was brand new, and right when he got squeezed out. And so we're making, no income, going down to Tucson.
Well, what's interesting is we closed escrow, and 2 months later,
literally,
they squeezed me out. We would have never been able to qualify.
We didn't have any income
for the mortgage because I didn't have any income, and so that was just enough.
That year
it taught us another lesson: just keep going and going and going and going.
Yep.
Timing, do the right thing, and the right things happen.
Yeah. And then you got to try some shit out too. So we went with another company and back to Eddie. So Eddie, who he hired, we were just talking about, he was now a general manager, which is really cool because I actually met him because they were my client for a while before they sold. So, but his longtime good friend, he's like, dude, come down here, just get started, we'll figure it out. And it turned out he really wanted him to take over his store because he was really sick and he had been sick for a really long time. His health was terrible. He had given himself injections 3 times a day, and he lost every single bit of his hair. And he kept just plugging away. He just kept going to work and going to work. He never took any time off. He could have taken a year off if he wanted to. His company told him to.
Could have retired.
He could have quit. Yeah. I mean, he had plenty of money. He had all, he was set. He didn't need to work is what we're saying. And that didn't work out. So he was going down to Tucson, just a 2-hour drive. People that don't know Arizona, staying in a little piece of shit apartment that had a 1-bedroom. We rented all this furniture for that apartment. He had this old TV this big, and he'd go down there he'd leave 5:00 Monday morning and come home Saturday night at 6:00 at night. And every night after I put the kids to bed, we would find something on Netflix. So he'd have like his little TV and I'd have TV, and we were like, okay, we found a show, and be like, countdown, 3, 2, 1, play. So that we could watch TV together, at the end of the night and kind of hang out on FaceTime at least. And that was a really difficult time. It was gloomy. You work your ass off all these years. You're general manager for all these years, and now you're in a 1-bedroom apartment in Tucson, Arizona, working for a really, really hard. It's in a Dodge dealership is in a really scary part of town. It's not. There was crap happening all over the place down there.
The nickname of the alley behind the store was Crack Alley.
Yeah, for a reason.
South Tucson, so a lot of crime,
scary,
a lot of crazy people. But the hardest part about the apartment, because I'd accomplished a lot, and as far as monetarily, etc. And now I'm living in an apartment on the 3rd floor with rented furniture by myself with a bunch of other people that are young, military people, this, that. God bless them, nothing against them, but it's like I'm talking about resetting or restarting your life. Mm-hmm. Like going back 40 years was really, talk about taking a hit to your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. So Eddie had this plan that you would take over his store because he managed that store for a long time, and it was his life, and he was
with the new people that bought it.
Owner of the store did not like that plan and let you know after 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So Eddie had to come in and fire him. It was horrible. And I was agreeing. I said, he called me. It was January 31st of, what year was that? 2017?
6 years ago. Yeah.
16. Yeah, because 2023 will
17,
be. Yeah.
Yes.
So we've only been married not even a year after, almost hitting our 1-year anniversary, and he gets fired. And I said, awesome. I said, come home right now. Just drive home right now. And then call Brent Burge. Because Brent has been calling you.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is he calling you? Because you already have a job. We thought we were going to be there forever.
Yeah.
There we go.
Here we go.
Said, come on over. So, we were super lucky to be, with the Burge family. It's someone I've known for a long time. He was one of my clients back in 97. So I've known Brent for longer than you have. But you had also known him, he bought the Toyota store in 2010?
You know him before.
9? I did, but you had also known him for a long time. So that's where we ended up. And it was, it's been extremely challenging, but also because it was so hard to turn that store around, so fulfilling, right? How do you feel now versus when you started?
Well, I still got to tell them about the tapes.
Yes.
That's when everything changed.
Thank you.
Okay, so
you were so beaten down.
I was beaten down. I was driving a used Camry, and Camrys are great. It's just really not my car. I love Tundras, and but we bought a used car from Brent.
Yeah.
The day after I got squeezed out, and I was driving a used red Camry, commuting to Tucson. But I used to listen to a lot of sports talk radio, KTAR, because I know Doug and Wolf, Gamble and Ash, blah, blah, blah. And it would drive her crazy because in the garage I had these Tony Robbins CDs just sitting on the shelf. But I wasn't listening to them because I was so beaten down that I didn't even want to listen to any positive mental attitude shit. Right. I just didn't. You know, it's almost like, I'm like, why? And this is 6.5 years ago, so it's not like early in my life. This is later in my life.
He's 60 years old, starting all over again, and I could see it in his face. He's very defeated. He didn't really want to go. He didn't have the energy like he did. I was literally praying. I said, God, please give me the right words, the right time, and the right tone. Because sometimes I have really brilliant things to say, but my tone really sucks. It doesn't come over very well. Goes over like a lead balloon, as they say. So I do. I pray for the right words and the right timing and the right tone. And he's pulling out.
So I got in my car, and the radio came on, and she heard it, and I didn't know
fucking
at the
sports
time
radio.
It was driving her crazy every time she walks me out, which is every day.
Why are you listening to that?
It would drive her crazy. So this one day she said, can you turn that down? And this was a life-defining moment. And even though I've had lots of challenges, ups and downs, every day is going to suck one way or another. You just got to learn to love the suck. And
going to be some challenge.
We have learned to love the suck. We just know shit's going to happen. What are you going to do when it happens? It's not what's going to happen. It's what you're going to do, what process you're going to take when that happens. How you're going to look at it, which is going to create the emotion that you tag to the event. And so I turned the radio down. She looked at me and she goes, let me ask you a question. What were you doing when you were a badass motherfucker that you aren't doing now? And I was like, oh shit, that's it. And I never listened to the radio after that. I started listening to Tony, which took me to Grant Cardone, which took me to Ed Milet, which took us to Andy Frisella. And the last 6 years after that have been the most rewarding, the most happy, the most learning, the most growth I've had in my entire life.
Same.
Because of that one sentence.
Well, I've been praying about it for weeks. And so obviously
you've learned the power of prayer.
God told me to say that.
And he was right, wasn't he? Yes. He always is.
Thanks for the right words.
Anyway, so that was when I came out of my funk. And but there's another lesson too. When you're beaten down, you just got to keep popping up. Like, everybody says, if you get knocked down, you're going to keep getting knocked down. Just what changes things is getting back up again.
It's not how many times you get beaten down. It's how many times you get up.
Yeah. And then for me, it's how fast to get up.
Right.
If I'm beaten down, I don't lay on the ground for 2, 3, 4 days or a week or a month anymore. It's maybe an hour. Right. And then I pop right back up again and just go right back at it.
Right. So how has your definition of success changed from when you were younger? It was all about the symbols of status, right?
Money, cars, watches.
But that means
houses.
I'm successful because I have a Rolex. And I don't think that I don't think that having a goal that is a monetary goal, I think that's a great motivation. I think it's great inspiration. It's something that he never had anything nice when he was a kid. He always wanted a beautiful Rolex. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't say Rolexes are beautiful and might aspire to have one someday. And to get to the point where you can actually buy one is huge. And you should celebrate when you work your ass off and you attain, even if it's a material goal. But the more material goals, objects that you're able to acquire, the less they are valuable, or what's the right word?
The amount of time that you really go, wow, it shrinks.
Yeah.
And so, like, even this house.
Yeah.
It was a 3-year project, and we built this home together, and it's beautiful. And a week or 2 weeks in, we're like, now what?
Now what?
It's
like the end of Finding Nemo when they finally escape, and then they're like in the plastic bags and they're sitting in the ocean in the plastic bags. They're like,
but the thing that changed the most was my intention. Yeah. And earlier, my intention was just to make a lot of money and spend a lot of money and look the part, and you know, taking care of people was part of it, but not the main thing. Now it's shifted to that's the main thing. We still have monetary goals, but that's not the primary
helps drive
thing.
us.
You know, because God's taken my wealth. Not God. My wealth has gone away twice, and it's because I didn't have the right intention. And you know, I was pretty good at making money, horrible at saving it, and hopefully that's changing. But
That's in the past.
I was doing it with the wrong intention.
Yeah.
Now I just want to help other people as massively as I can with my stories. And in turn, I learned, because every time you teach something, you relearn it. And now the byproduct will be the material shit if you want it. We just want freedom more than anything. It's not really about the stuff anymore. It's about being able to do what we want, when we want, wherever we want, with whomever we want. And
it's really about the experiences.
About the experiences. Like right now, if we don't go through some hard shit, we feel like we're missing out on something. It's like the bigger the problem, the more fulfilled you feel.
It's not like we're begging or, you know, trying to manifest as many problems as possible. But what we've learned is that once you get through something, whatever the challenge is, losing a job, losing your house, I've been bankrupt before. Once you actually get through it, then you can look back on like the lady said on Ed's show the other day. It's like, I just listed out everything that I've gone through, and I just actually go, wow, you know, I've been through a lot. That's why I want to share your story, because you've been through so much shit.
Well, she said she listed all the adversities in her life, going back to being a kid, baby. Mm-hmm. And she was on Ed Milet's podcast, and she'd write down how she overcome it or what she learned from it when she overcame it. Yeah. And that's huge. Yeah. Yeah. She's doing the same thing we're talking about, just maybe help someone else not go through not have to learn it all by themselves. Scratch.
I know. Yeah. And then the other side of that is that you really can't learn something unless you go through it, really. I mean, so the challenge is once you're going through them, you know that you're building the skills that you need to do the whatever it is that you really want to do. That's what we've found, you know, and achieving the goal is not instant happiness, and it's not instant, you know, happiness forever. But it's a great catalyst. So it's really something that we worked for, we manifested, we were designing, we were constantly thinking about it. We were constantly over here looking at it, making decisions, changing this wall, that wall. And it was the most exhilarating thing. We knew this was a beautiful, amazing community. We knew the people here were going to be incredible. And they invited us to parties before we even moved in. Our house wasn't even done. And we're like, you got to come over. We're having a block party. And so we got to meet everybody. And so living here has been so fun and so fulfilling, and all the relationships that we're creating because of the new community. But we're kind of going, well, we need a new goal because we're already done with this one. Now what are we going to do?
We got lots of goals.
We do, yeah. So we still have goals that require a certain amount of wealth to achieve, but it's not the wealth that's the goal. It's the wealth that we need to be able to become the person we want to be and have the experiences that we want to be, you know? We love Maui, and it costs money to go to Maui.
And the more we see people that are challenged and going through things, the more we just want to help them. Like our own team at the Toyota store, we have 150 teammates, and it's been fun to watch their lives change. So have ours, but especially most of them I used to be the youngest guy in the room. Now I'm not. And so it's kind of cool to help younger people understand that they're going to be dealt shit. So when the shit comes, they aren't going, why me? Why this happened to me? They're going, bring it on. Okay.
This is good.
Part of the process.
I'm going to learn and grow.
Yeah, I'm going to learn
solving
and grow.
This process.
Part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
If shit's not coming, then you aren't doing anything.
Right.
You're sitting in the bedroom with some Cheetos watching a movie.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to get out there and be vulnerable, shit's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, there's all this like balances buzzword. Everybody got to have the balance. You got to work-life balance.
No balance.
You think about a balanced scale.
There's no balance.
There's nothing happening.
Nope.
There's no way. And there's no straight line.
Nope.
So it's always going to be ups and downs and ups and downs. And so if you were running into somebody who was at a crossroads, or just had a divorce, or just went bankrupt, or, just got fired, what advice would you give them?
And I mean, there's so many variations. And mostly it's just, what happened? What did it do to you? What are you thinking? And then what are you going to do to overcome it? What have you learned from it?
What have you learned?
Okay? That's the biggest thing. What have you learned? When I didn't fight that dude years and years ago, I learned not to be a pussy. I learned to stand up for myself. And I learned that, getting a couple cuts on your face isn't that bad after all.
Yeah.
As you can witness from the many cuts.
The scars. I know. He's always worried about the scars. It was also when he was looking for a job and he was 60. He was really worried about that. And so anybody who's, starting out later or starting over later in life, or really has a dream that you've always had, and you happen to be 60-ish or somewhere around that, what I told him is that the thing that you have that none of these 30-year-olds have, it's wisdom. So
and experience.
You only get wisdom from experience. You can't skip over it. You only learned what you've learned from managing so many people and having so many customers and learning what works and what doesn't work. And there's no way to learn that. You can't be your first day on the job at age 22 and go, yep, I totally get it all. I totally know everything there is to know, because you haven't done anything yet. And so everybody can really learn from your wisdom, and you got to change that mindset. If you're feeling that, if you have that limiting belief about age, about anything, about your circumstances or your age, or you have some story about, I can't because fill in the blank. There's always someone who has done it, always. So I really want everybody to know that, you're starting over at 60. Okay. So we started over, and then we just kept grinding away. You just kept grinding. He just kept getting out of bed at 5, kept going to the gym, and then he just kept showing up. I mean, literally, that's all you have to do, is you just keep showing up every day, even on those days you didn't want to. How many days did you pull into the store that
every day.
Every day.
Even
and
when I
what?
had cancer, I had 40 treatments for radiation. I never missed a day.
No, but you didn't want to go.
I didn't want
to go. You to talk about that.
There's lots of times I don't want to go.
Right.
You just got to make yourself do it. And that's as Andy and Ed talk about all the time, it's the discipline of making yourself do what you don't want to do. That's what it's all about. And once you do it, you feel good about it. If you don't do it, you feel awful. But it's getting that momentum with the discipline part of it. And but we have our moments too. Going through the heart surgery, our discipline is wavered a little bit.
Yeah.
And we haven't done as much.
Not jumping out of the bed and going to the gym.
Well, we still get up and do our walk.
He shouldn't. So we're just walking. As soon as he feels better, then we can lift weights. But yeah, we totally took us off our game. But
we're going to keep coming back.
Still do something.
Yeah.
Still go for a walk, at least get some exercise and some, vitamin D, get some sunshine, all that. So how would you define sex? How would you define sex? Let's talk about sex a little bit. What's your favorite position?
Okay.
Just kidding.
How does it make you feel?
Success. Sucking. We will not be sucking seed. How do you succeed?
So
it's from Matt Coscar movie.
It's fulfillment. It's being whole. It's sharing it with someone you love, and not just you, but other people, your family, our friends. That's what success is to me anymore. Because I had success, quote, before, but I was empty as shit. So that's not real success. So success for me is not monetary. It's how does your life look? What kind of friends do you have? What kind of people are you helping? How's your family? What's his name? We're listening. Vinny talks about him all the time.
Eric Thomas.
Eric Thomas said
E.T. hip hop.
You're $1 million man at work. You make $1 million. Are you $1 million man at home?
Right.
And are you
7-figure father and a 7-figure husband?
Is because they're a 7-figure worker, but
right.
not a 7-figure husband or father.
Yeah. They leave all of it on the field, so to speak, and they don't have anything left when they get home. And that's a hard thing to manage, especially when you have health problems like you've had. It's not like you've been feeling like 150% every day for the last year. You had open heart surgery March 25th. So we're just past the 7-month mark. And I don't know if you know anybody that had heart surgery, but that'll take you out. It takes a long time to recover from that, long time to feel good and to get your energy back. And it's been a hell of a year. Yeah, for sure. And then, a couple years before that, he had cancer. And so he got through that. But it's not like you just, do treatment and then you're cancer free and you're good to go. No, you still don't feel good. It takes a long time. Now your body has to recover from the treatment. And so, you've really been through hell, but I would say we probably had the best couple of years of our lives, during those things, as those things were going, because, we were talking about this morning, the longer you're with somebody as a couple, the more you forget what it's like not to have that person to share. Because I was even reading the Gottmans. If you haven't read any of the Gottmans, they've published a book, it's not 7 Habits, but I'll get the title of it. And it's so good. He said, I can predict the couples who are going to get a divorce with a 93% correction. And he said, it's based on one thing. It's when they become indifferent to what the other person is trying to share with them. And so he can tell when he's looking at any couple and one of them goes, hey, look at that thing over here. Or, oh, look at this person, this article, this cloud, this whatever. And the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And so the person who doesn't care, doesn't look up, doesn't acknowledge what he just said, doesn't look at what he just wanted to, or she, they said 93% of the time they get a divorce. And that's what they do. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? If that's the number one marker for the success of a relationship, then that's probably pretty damn important, right? I never really thought of it that way, because when you're single, you could have built this house yourself. You could have, built it exactly the same way, same furniture. You could have sat on the same patio, sat in the same jacuzzi, but you'd be lonely as shit, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't have built the same because you had a big part of it too. So
that's true. I'm pretty great at designing, but I was going to say
it wouldn't have been this nice. Not even close.
But I mean it. But you could have.
I get the concept.
I did not contribute very much monetarily to this home. Let's just say that.
Didn't have to.
I do work. Yes, I make money.
You do, but you drive me to work. Yeah, I don't want to.
But it's like you were saying earlier. Having someone to share it with.
Yep. It's
so important, because having success while you're alone sucks.
Sure does.
So I think that's been, for both of us, really the reason why we want to drive, we want to succeed, we want to do more, we want to share more, we want to help more. And I think, well, I would have to agree, about the definition of success of some sex. I mean, success, is, well, that's number one, sex. Number two, having someone to share it with. Just kidding. No, not in that order. Have someone to share it with, have sex, and making progress on our goals. And also serving. I don't think you can feel fulfilled unless you're helping somebody else. I don't think it's possible.
Well, and so the reason I think we're both so wanting to do that is, at least from my standpoint, it would have been super nice to have someone that actually wanted to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how that feels not to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want other people to feel the same way.
Yeah.
Because when we do help someone and we really care about them, we can see what happens. Like
right.
Even Iris today.
Right.
We're going to go take a friend of ours to lunch, and she's had a real bad couple of years with bad surgeries. She lost her husband a couple of years ago. She's one of our dear friends.
Mm-hmm.
She's not very mobile, so we're going to go pick her up, bring her over here. She's never seen the house, and take her to lunch. But when I called her today to see what she was doing, it was a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
And she said nothing. I said, well, we'd like to come pick you up and bring you to our house, show you our house, and take you to lunch. And you could hear in her voice how excited that made her feel. You know, she's probably, who knows what she's doing, putting on makeup or whatever right now, getting ready. But she's a lovely woman, and it makes us feel good to know that. It's not like we don't have anything else to do today. It's my one day off.
Yeah.
You know, and we could do lots of shit. We need to do lots of shit, but nothing more important than helping someone that we know feel better about today, feel better about themselves, feel better about humanity, feel better about life.
Yeah.
Nothing better than that.
And we love her. So it's a win-win.
Win-win.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
Hell no, it's been way too long already.
He's bored of himself, so I hope you're not bored.
Myself.
Yes. Well, this has been really fun. Thank you for being my first victim. Even though this is our podcast, I wanted to interview him
sucks like crazy
first.
But, you know, anytime you do something in the beginning, it always sucks.
I know.
So now we have a baseline. Now we just keep what?
Not me. When I do something, it's awesome.
That's true. Only me.
Speak for yourself.
She's always right.
I even have a T-shirt that says "Mrs. Always Right."
Of course you do.
It's his favorite shirt.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
So, thanks for being here. Thanks for being on our show, Create Today, and just remember, you can create anything in your life that you want to create, no matter what shit you've been through, because you're gonna go through some shit. You're gonna have major challenges, and the success and fulfillment is on the other side. Have a great day.